Dave is the director of Shining Lights Trust, and he's married to Heather, and they have 4 wonderful sons. Dave studied theology at Laidlaw College, which used to be the Bible College of New Zealand, and after that did community ministry in South Taranaki. He then pastored for 8.5 years in Singapore. Most of us, Shining Lights Trust is a strategic resourcing ministry that encourages and aids the church in sharing the message of God's love to a world in need of hope. Most of us will have received the benefits of these resources through the ads at Easter, the Hope for All booklets, the opportunity to learn how to be taught keys in leading people to the Lord, particularly conversational keys, such as the way Jesus interacted with the woman at the well. And all of these booklets are distributed to towns and cities by churches working together within one of those places. And Dave, just thank you for the opportunities you give the church to work together and express its unity. The other thing that I'd like to highlight with all that Dave and Shining Lights Trust do is the emphasis on bringing Christ back into the center of Christmas through providing opportunities for nativity scenes and things like that. So Dave, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the blessing that you and Shining Lights Trust are to New Zealand, and we look forward to what you're going to share with us tonight.
Cool. Hey, well, kia ora whānau. Can everyone hear me? Just a quick wave of hands. Excellent, fantastic. Yeah, so my name is Dave. Now, Sarah is in our team. So, Sarah, if you want to just wave your hand, she's going to be tech support to look at a few things today. But special greetings, Grace and Colin, Elizabeth, Malcolm, thank you for your hosting of this. And we also have James Williamson, one of our Shining Lights Trust board members, joining us today as well. So greetings to you, James. We're overdue for a phone conversation to catch up. The Shining Lights Trust really is simply about the gospel. Yeah, the desire is that people would know Jesus. The question is, how do we help the church be most effective in that? And our felt part of that picture is to identify gaps in the outreaching efforts of the church as a whole. Now, the thing we're most famed for or known for is, of course, Hope Project, which has been mentioned. And we made a strange strategic decision this year to actually do no Hope Project booklet and no TV advertisements. And we've simply continued with an expanded social media this year. And we did this for a number of reasons. One of them was so that I could take a 3-month break after 14 years of the work. I needed that break. But also it's enabled focus to go into other areas of the gospel work that we do. If you were to go to alltogether.co.nz, which is our primary resourcing website for gospel work, if you were to go to the Hope Project page, at that page you'd see this report. Every year we put the annual report there. And we identified early on 6 key areas that we call our strategic pillars, which are the diagram here, in which we felt we might be able to make a contribution to help to raise the gospel temperature of the church as a whole. And so this is really about change theory. This is about innovation, networking, resource creation to try and catalyze broad changes. And the things that people see are often individual innovations that sit within those broader strategies. But that's what I'll speak to today, just at the grassroots. Regarding Hope Project, the gap that we identified here was that we were losing our voice in the public square as churches, especially around Christmas and Easter, with offence taken when we brought Christian messages into that space. And I think that was unacceptable in a nation with religious freedom. And freedoms of religion and speech are a case of use it or lose it. And so the idea of Hope Project was that God's church would in some way reclaim that space and show no shame in the sharing of its message, yet do so very gently. recognizing that people won't come to faith overnight. It's about helping them take steps toward Jesus, one step at a time, inclusive of the gospel, but also testimony and reasons for faith and the stories of history. So we have 10 of those projects behind us, and by God's grace, our hope 2026 is to return to the full effort again, possibly every second year, maybe every year. We're yet to decide. So it could be 2028, 2030, 2032. And then 2033 will be the 2000th anniversary of our Lord's death and resurrection. So there is already a lot of talk internationally about that year to make it a year of evangelism, where the gospel again goes to every person possible. This year in our social media, just to give a reflection of the type of work that's going on, my hope is that we eventually connect with half of all New Zealanders with a Christian message online at Christmas and also at Easter. Through just Facebook and Instagram this year, we connected with 1.9 million different people. That was a total of 7.3 million views, so people were seeing a Christian content on average 3 or 4 times. Amongst that, there were 17,000 specific content interactions, and that data is separate to Google and YouTube social media, for which I've got no data yet. So that's an indication of where we're at. One of the things we did recently also was we needed to recreate some ads and some videos related to Hope Project. So Sarah's just going to jump in and share. The audio isn't playing correctly, but this is a 30-second ad. The concept, many people, one voice. Many Christians, great diversity, but it's one message about God.
There is a life that's upside down, where the humble are the strong.
The smallest seeds make the tallest trees. The unwanted can belong.
And the act of love that made this life
Was an act of sacrifice.
by a man of light who split the night.
Who paid the highest price.
So those in pain can rise again and make a fresh new start. And that's the point of Easter you may wish to take to heart.
Now, I can only apologize for the audio. There's beautiful music, but the technology is so good it removes background noise when we're, like if I had background noise now, Zoom would actually cancel that out. But the concept there again, many people, great diversity, one message. And the brilliance of that ad, credits to Rob, is that it doesn't say Jesus, which can be an offense to a non-Christian. Noting we're putting this right in front of non-Christians all over the place. But it begs the question, who's that about? And the audience goes, oh, that's about Jesus. So Jesus' name is categorically in it, but we create the situation within which the audience has to deduce that for themselves. But that's an illustration of a part of the work, and I do believe, to speak from my heart here, I think that the gospel can make more of a comeback in this nation yet. We just have to have more sincerity around that. We can only lead people where we can see. If we can see the lost, if we can see like Jesus saw with compassion that the crowds were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd, if we can be broken for the lost, that desperation will lead us not only to prayer, but I believe to innovation and to creativity. And God's Spirit can help us to do more. And if there's anything that I pray our work would be able to catalyze, it would be the spirit of innovation in gospel work. And I pray for that in some way every day. To take you to a few other areas of the work, to give a reflection of the wider work that is going on. Well, one of the gaps we identified was the attrition of young adults in particular from the Christian faith. It's still estimated that about 2/3 of all young people leave the faith in that 18 through about 22, 24-year-old age bracket. From a range of studies, the key dynamic to that is they lack a knowledge of reasons to believe the faith to be true. Having supported apologetics ministries and similar things for over a decade, we saw a gap that we felt still needed to be filled. And so, Sarah, if you just want to bring up and show some of the web materials. So we created the Why Christians Believe series around about 18 months ago. It was launched. It's my ugly mug because I did the work, and any Christian media in the public square has to be authentic. You can never employ an actor. And so if I'm the person saying it, I need to be the person saying it. So you've got 7 videos there. Sarah can randomly start playing one. They're 15 minutes long, free online, whychristiansbelieve.nz. They all come with discussion guides for free. There are PDFs of the booklets. If I'm on your screen in very small form at the top, there's printed booklets, which are completely outstanding, if I might say so myself, suiting age probably 16 or 17 through to 90 or 95. And they explain why Christians believe Christianity to be true, giving an overarching apologetic that most people have never heard. And I would suggest that if some people were to read that booklet series from cover to cover, their understanding of the faith would likely be transformed. Very few would have heard what is contained within it. We've then added to that a children's church series, 9 weeks long, that churches could take and do with their Sunday schools with no use of the videos at all. We did this in partnership with Right Now Media, who are promoting the resource internationally. We created a 24-day devotional series around the resource, which is on the YouVersion Bible app. But then also to get this before non-believers, we're doing social media engagement, and Michael and our team has then broken the series into about 100 shorter video clips. These are social media shorts, and here's some examples. These are in fact popping up in my own social media feed personally, so I get to see myself popping up. But again, these are just short 1-minute snippets trying to intrigue people to have a thought about Christ, or even to have a reaction, just to help that conversation be sparked and to continue. In short, the gospel can make a comeback. There's a growing interest, there's a growing readiness, I believe, in our culture to Christian things, but we have to find ways to engage. To look at a different area of the work, youth ministry has been a long-term concern of ours. In 2016 and 2017, I travelled and met face-to-face with about 500 different youth leaders throughout New Zealand as a part of investigating what the actual gaps were to gospel work. We concluded that youth ministry was attending, say in the present time, probably about 25% of what it was attending 25 years ago. So our question has been, what could be innovated in this space to actually catalyse change? GodTalk.nz was one of those initiatives, creating simple outreach equipping resources and very simple leadership training resources related to the gospel for youth leaders. And we've worked in trying to connect with a key contact in each church to help this get in front of each new youth leader, noting we've got a systemic problem that we have new youth leaders every 18 months on average across New Zealand churches. But the wider gaps that we identified were that young people were no longer hearing about the gospel right across the country, where 30 years ago, through Youth for Christ, Scripture Union and other things they did, youth leaders are no longer united in each city and town. There is little to no gospel equipping at all. There are now no networks of school groups where youth unite in a school to strengthen each other and pray together for witness, and there is a distinct lack of gospel events taking place, all with a comparison to 25, 30 years ago being possible. I am pleased to say that a recent strategic development in that space, where we've partnered with others intentionally to help it come about, is that there has been a first and soon a second gathering of national youth leaders. Now, this includes those leading denominational youth organisations and those leading national youth outreach organisations. These have united together in the vision of seeing every young person in New Zealand again having an opportunity to encounter Jesus through a friend. And looking at the 4 goal areas that we are meeting again soon to discuss strategy regarding how do we get youth leaders united in every city and town again, how do we get school groups going, gospel equipping going, and gospel events going, to strengthen what exists in youth groups to help return a momentum to that space. So that's another example of the kind of work that we do, which is largely unseen but is strategic and fairly engaged. In fact, there's a survey we're soon to attempt, probably. I'm just checking with God that he's with us because it's another thing to do. But we want to do a survey not to produce data we'd share, but to actually measure the gospel temperature of youth ministry nationally, how many youth groups, how many people in them, etc., so that there's something to compare to in 2 and 4 years' time to evidence the efficacy or otherwise of strategies that this group might deploy together. Again, the gospel can make a comeback, but it won't happen by mistake. We have to see the lost. We have to dream, we have to pray, and we have to attempt some things. Another of our initiatives at the moment, with the time availed by not doing a national booklet delivery through volunteers, has been the creating of some more gospel resources to fill gaps where we had been regularly asked to do so. And our niche, our gap that we have seen is that you could go to Ray Comfort to get more direct gospel resources. So no one needs to create anything new there. What's needed is a little bit back from that with a little more gentle approach that still has the gospel and testimony, but isn't as direct. Different resources and tools suit different environments. And so we created Unwrapping Christmas, a really very intriguing Christmas resource. We had about 13,000 of those used this Christmas, and we'll keep that on stock as an ongoing resource available to churches. We just created Easter. What is it that Christians believe? Having a look, again, very simple compared to the Hope for All booklets, but just specifically the gospel and reasons to believe. We're about to create a first booklet about Halloween, which everyone's going to absolutely love, because I've been watching the gospel opportunities that exist around light parties, and I just don't think we've worked out how to communicate through them. And so we've made suggestions already through our pastors' updates. We've created radio pieces to help ideas become disseminated, but the booklet will put a tool in people's hands, not only to give away, but to discover and learn from in terms of how we could make better use of the opportunities we have in the public square to bring Christian messages that help people incrementally, one step at a time, to journey toward Jesus. Another initiative at the moment in a similar space is the creation of topical pastors' updates, because my time again wasn't given to national networking for a volunteer delivery. And so the homepage, altogether.co.nz, you'll see current things there at any point in time. Outreach in small groups, outreach in New Zealand history, outreach in reasons for faith, outreach in unity, outreach in a disciple-making culture, outreach in equipping strategy. And if you click into one of those, each is like the chapter of a book, but it's quite a comprehensive topical look at how the outreaching dynamic could be restored or strengthened within each of these different spaces. We're not going to see people in the public square turning back toward Christ just because we have people sharing Jesus on the streets. We're not going to see people turn back to Christ just because pastors decide to include simple gospel messages more often in their pulpits. It's going to be the combination of 10 or 15 different things we do. Strengthening the gospel temperature of our small groups and of our community ministries and in our conversations. All of that will help the water level to come up. This involves every Christian, every church, every denomination, and every organization. And so, again, through that homepage, topical updates, that could be a great resource. Two more things and I'll land it. One of our areas of focus at the moment is history. If people are skeptical, trying to find a simple way to say it. In our social media, I've had the privilege of engaging with a lot of people who are very negative toward the Christian faith. And I remember doing a talk on some of this, and we collected the different types of criticisms that were leveled toward the faith in our social media. This is half a dozen or more years ago. And it suddenly occurred to me as I looked at this list that nearly every single one of those objections was best answered with a story from history. The stories of history tell us who we are. Those who tell the history write the future. And one of the reasons our culture is so negative to Christianity is that it's heard about the Inquisitions and the Crusades, but it's never heard the tens of thousands of amazing positive stories that explain how we became one of the most free, prosperous, equality-based charitable nations on the planet and also in all of human history. And so we undertook early on, from about 2015, 16, we began to pivot. We'd done a lot of work in the bicultural space. I actually spoke well over 100 times to groups of pastors, for example, trying to help turn the hearts of people toward a regard for our bicultural identity and history and the gospel dynamic in it. You might know of the Chronicles of Paki, children's stories, which sit under an entirely different brand to the Shining Lights Trust for a reason. We've had the stories, in the Hope for All booklets. We need to now look at and learn about our wider Christian heritage, which defines many of our most treasured values. And so one of the initiatives at the moment, squeezing into the gaps, is the writing of what will be an 80 to 90,000 word book about New Zealand's values history. We've done a draft graphically of only one chapter to get the design concept. We don't know who'll publish it yet, but that's an example just of what it might look like. And this is looking to answer the question, how did we become one of the most free, prosperous, equality-based charitable nations on the planet and in human history? So it'll be graphically beautiful. It's going to be 15 chapters, only 2 on the bicultural dynamic, but the others looking at where our charity came from, our equality, education for all, healthcare care for all, etc., etc. The more difficult chapters regard economics and science, and then just one chapter for the end where I get to state my own opinion, which I'm about to write. The writing's nearly done. The checking will take most of the rest of this year, and I hope that this will be published by some means early next year. But we'd like to see that in the hands of every politician, every key person in education, every council member, but maybe also in the hands of every pastor, because the book is intentionally a compilation of 300-word stories. 80 to 90,000 words worth of 300-word stories, helping us to discover these stories through our history that have actually shaped the values that we have. If Sarah can show, these have been turned already in previous years, the research for this, into 1-minute audios at hopeproject.co.nz. You can click a minute in history, and it takes you through to a collection currently of about 140 1-minute audios played on Radio Rema and Life FM. And this is a part of a wider strategy to help us all begin to have a higher regard for our values history, to know and tell the stories, because they remove obstacles to faith. They help people to realize, like the secular historian Tom Holland, who eventually realized that actually he was Christian by culture. Even take our famed Richard Dawkins admitting more recently that he's a cultural Christian. There is a turning going on within our wider civilization, of which we're a subpart. There is a turning toward Christianity within this, but we have to engage if we're going to leverage that change. And so the hope here is to help us discover the kinds of stories and things we can do to engage. Another iteration of the same is that we're going to create social media videos of the same. If you create content, why put it in one format? You might as well put it in two and reach wider audience. So here we go, healthcare, the idea of the hospital, where did it come from? I'm not sure if that's about St. Vincent de Paul at the end of the day or what it is, but again, this is all about finding audience with Christian messages to turn the hearts of people in this nation back toward the God whose values in truth have defined so many of our cultural values. For one final thing then, as we go to the prayer items, and there'll be just a PowerPoint slide Sarah will pop up for these. The most important area of gospel work in this nation, everything that's been said, put aside, there's one that's more important than all of them, and that is the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry. There is no better strategy for reaching out in this nation than every believer being equipped by their pastor, their small group leader, and their youth leader to engage everyday spiritual conversations in their workplace, in their school, over the fence with the neighbour, and in their home with their family. And so for our prayer items today, we'll focus it around that if we can, please. First of all, an increased gospel focus in every church through the pulpit and the small group, in every youth ministry through intentional discussion times, in every city pastors group, recognizing that the mandate there beyond relationship and prayer is to do together what they cannot do apart in service to the mission God has given us. And likewise on the national stage, belief and vision and unity nationally, to be able to perceive what we could do nationally together, how we could collaborate in ways that might actually be able to have a cultural effect, helping people be restored to a knowledge of and eventually a relationship with their Creator. So an increased gospel temperature, and secondly, and finally, for our own ministry, to pray for insight, creativity, team, just for good creativity and cohesion in the team, and for funding. I would say if I had anything regarding our own work that I would love to see changed, it would be far more engagement. We have worked hard creating a wide range of strategies for different levels and areas of outreach, creating resources that can plug holes and gaps. I feel that these aren't anywhere near as widely utilised as they could be. Yet if more regard were to be given to things that have been created with a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of strategic thought, there could be significant return for the body of Christ. So thank you for listening, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for prayers.